This episode, burning topic, how do you find land? Welcome back to the Smallholding Revolution, where we help people just like you find their way to owning their own piece of land, building their farm business and lifestyle, and building their home on that said land.
Whoop whoop.
The floor is open.
Discuss.
All right.
Yeah.
So there are a couple of different ways you can do it. We are in the data and technology era.
Yes.
So everybody starts with a Google search.
Yeah, Google.
And I started with a Google search and it didn't get me very far. And I had to call David and say, so how do you find land? Because I started with Rightmove.
Google search, then phone Dave.
Yeah. I started with Rightmove. And I reckon most people would probably start with Rightmove.
Yeah.
Because that's where you find your student accommodation.
Yeah.
That's where you find your next
Everything's on
rental
Rightmove.
accommodation after you graduated. And that's where a lot of people look for houses when they're trying to buy.
Yeah. I started on Rightmove, getting the the inspiration going and going shopping. I love the shopping piece. Going to shop for some farms. I loved it.
That's it.
It's the exciting bit.
Yeah.
So
Well,
there's
Rightmove has got its Rightmove has its merits, and we can go into detail as to how you can get the best out of Rightmove in the moment. And of course, they're the Rightmove analogues like Zoopla and Prime Location and what have you. But one of the worthwhile places to have a look for farmland in particular is a site called, let's get this wrong, UK Farms and Land, or was it UK Land and Farms?
Got it totally wrong. It's UK Land
Can you
and
remember?
Farms. UK Land and Farms.
I knew it. That's it. And that is a specific site. And many of the properties that are on there are also on Rightmove, but there are many that aren't.
That's
and they
right.
often, it's well worth having a look at. Covers the whole of the UK, and some of the properties on there are very large farms. And you don't be put off by that, because often, and we'll talk about this in more detail, but often farmers who have large farms will sell off the farm in lots. And what that means is they will divide up the cake. If you imagine a farm as a cake, they'll divide it up into separate. Sorry, by the way, if you can hear noises in the background, I'm actually planting trees whilst we're talking. So just put in some little hazel coppice.
Multitasking. So on UK Land and Farms, that's actually where I found my farm. Okay.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah, and I loved shopping on there. I loved it. So on the filters, you go by area, type of property, how much acres that you want, and everything along those lines.
the right filters,
So have fun with those filters and just get inspired, see what's out there, see what's on the market. And as David says, don't shut off any options.
Yeah. Because that's
just
how I started.
open it up.
That is exactly how I started. I was like, I specifically want just 10 to 20 acres only in this area only. And I was like,
search, 0.
I remember speaking to David, I was like, I'm not really seeing very much. Are you sure this is the right website to use? And he was like, no, change your parameters. And
That's
it's
right.
David that put me on the whole idea of farmers will, sell their larger bits of land in smaller lots.
Yeah.
So filters off, show me everything. And I was like, okay, 500 acres. I can see if I can speak to the estate agent to speak to the actual vendor say, I only want 15 to 20 acres. Like, can you just break me off a little chunk on that little side over there?
Yeah.
And he can sell the rest. Because for them, I suppose, they don't really lose a great deal of money off the sale, because
they want the transaction, right? They want the conversation and they want the transaction.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
And there's a big difference in between there, because of obviously you got to bring in the vendor and we got to bring in you and match it. Yeah. Then there's the negotiation and things can fall out of bed. Yeah. So get into a lot of conversations. Yeah. Don't have a small view on things, because you won't have a lot of conversations.
Exactly.
All right. It took me 2 years to find my forever farm, my perfect site.
I'm glad you told me that, because I've been feeling like I'm failing. Because I've been searching for months and months.
No, it takes time.
A couple of close calls.
Well, can I
go on.
Can I come in here? Come in here? Because part of that search, when you start off and you're not from a farming background, you're not from an agricultural background. If you imagine your brain is like a computer that's just been bought from the Curry's Superstore or wherever. You've got no data in it, so you've got nothing to compare. You have no information. So the more you search, the more you do, the more knowledge, the more understanding you'll get as to what represents good value.
That's right.
The more, and this is without even going to view properties, by the way. That's a whole other thing, but the same principles apply. But it's really important to get into the habit, because after a period of time, you'll start to see trends. You'll start to get an understanding as to what's available, what represents good value. You'll see the difference between the cost of bare land versus the cost of land which has infrastructure. And in farming, that's very significant.
Exactly.
If there's land which has power, which has water, which is ring-fenced, which has hard standing areas, maybe barns and roads and what have you, the cost is going to be significantly higher than if you go for bare land.
That's right.
Now, but bare land means that you have to create a lot of that infrastructure. But don't be put off by that, because like when we're looking for houses, we generally are looking for the finished thing, the house. We have virtually no land in the UK when we buy a house. We buy a postage stamp site, and then we have our house on our roof and our foundations and our sewers and our bedrooms and our blah, blah, blah. With land, you're buying the commodity. And if you find bare land, whether it be a part of a large farm sale or whether it be a piece on its own, you will tend to find that the price is the bare commodity price. So there's no inflationary values on top of the value of that land, because it's got these additional things that have been, someone's put effort into putting on.
That's
so
right.
You're buying it at real value.
Exactly that. And it's an
Unless
amplifier
it's very
as well,
small.
right? It's an amplifier. So if you get just normal land, you can negotiate that 5, 10, 12 grand an acre. Okay. That the price doesn't really move a lot from there. But then you start amplifying that. So you get a borehole on
You put the value on it.
You put the value on it. So then it goes from 10 grand an acre to 12 grand an acre just by putting a borehole in there, because there's services. Then you put a sewage plant in there. That's another £3,000-4,000. Now it's an amplifier. Now it's £15,000 per acre. Then you get off-grid power put on there. Our system costs 12 grand. Okay, and we're off-grid power system with solar panels, batteries, and a new sexy generator, auto stop-start. And then it amplifies to 20 grand an acre. Okay, so the way that you then, as David says, don't discard anything. And it took us 2 years, but that 2 years wasn't, find my small parameters, that's my first viewing, I'm going to buy it in 2 years. In those 2 years, we went and kissed some frogs. We went to equestrian properties and saw some potential. We went to farmhouses and saw that it was overpriced. We went to bare land and saw whether we were up for the challenge and what infrastructure that we could have, what highways was the impact and everything along those lines. So then when you go back to UK farms and go shopping again, you spot different opportunities. Because you've kissed the frogs and kicked the tyres, you go back into the websites and you see different opportunities.
You might even look at the same property that you looked at before and dismissed and suddenly go, oh, actually, that's pretty good, because you'll see things that you didn't realise before, because you've done the legwork, you've done the research, you've educated yourself. Your subconscious has become attuned to what possibilities are. There's another very important thing that we often don't consider, which is we often look at a piece of land for ourselves and we go, right, I want 12.5 acres. I'm going to look for 12.5 acres. Well, look for 20, look for 30, look for 40, because you can then negotiate and discuss with the farmer, would they consider selling just a smaller part? But if they wouldn't, you might find someone else who also is like you, looking for 12.5 acres. And you could get a 25-acre plot and divide it into two between you. And each of you could buy it, or you could buy it together, or the farmer, generally when a farmer is selling land, they're more than happy to split the title. And in fact, a piece of land that I acquired was split into 5 lots. It was one lot for sale, but it was split into 5 lots. 4 went to local farmers, all the good stuff, and all the rubbish they sold to me.
You got.
Yeah.
So here's a bit of a thing there, because I would love this to be, the start of, and see whether you can help each other get your small holdings. Let's do that. So, comment in the video and see whether, put in the area that you want and what you're looking for. And hopefully we'll be able to match someone. And if we have a Smallholding Revolution marriage and a baby, I've got to get a new hat. That'd be wonderful.
Brilliant. No, but that's fantastic. If we can help people get that opportunity, I mean, ultimately, that's what we would love to do, be of service to people who are learning on the journey. And actually, that's a really, really important point. Don't restrict yourself. When you remember, if you've looked for a house or a flat, you generally look for what you want. You don't consider thinking, for something much bigger. Well, this is exactly what you should do in this environment, and you will find that suddenly the whole world opens up for you. Same with locations as well. You may have a specific location in mind. Broaden that, because once you start looking outside of that, you'll find that actually what you were being restricted by, the prejudices you have or the constraints you have regarding distance might evaporate, because once you get your small holding, you'll find that will become your country of occupation. And actually, you'll spend a lot less time doing that travel to the place where you already exist. Now, you might be lucky enough to find a perfect piece of land. Yeah. Well,
Bedfordshire? Who goes to Bedfordshire? Nothing's in Bedfordshire. I was from South London. I was like, why am I going to go Bedfordshire? I've never heard that it's pretty. I've never heard that there's anything going on. There's no significant things in Bedfordshire.
No, you're right.
And then I visited. What do you mean I'm right? It's beautiful. Then I visited, and it was the Bedfordshire Wolds. It was absolutely beautiful. And it was right on our doorstep, and I didn't even know. I've driven up that A1, visiting Jack's, stealing a kiss multiple times. Yeah? And I've just driven past Bedfordshire and discarded it. And then I went to view my perfect farm. And I went down the drive and I fell in love with it. And we go from, so as you said, about manifestation and, I brought that into the life, but don't have those prejudices as well. Don't discard anything, put everything on the table because of you might move on what you're prepared to do. I know you've got some deal-breaking pieces going on, but, it might change and morph over time, and, there's other opportunities and other things, especially if we can marry you with someone on here as well. That'd be absolutely wonderful, wouldn't it? Because some of the deals that you've seen, they're too big for you. So you could go with someone. And you want to be closer down that London southeast area. So it's a prime channel here and a prime forum to you marry up with someone. I'll get a new hat. Be wonderful.
So,
can I also say, just this might be a little bit left field, but it's on the same point, that we're living in an era now where technology and AI are converging, and it won't be long. I suspect certainly within 5 years, but definitely within 10, that we will have in the UK and throughout Europe, certainly in America for sure, there will be the authority given for full self-driving vehicles. Now, let's imagine that you're looking now for your small holding. You're not going to be looking for something that you're going to be in for a couple of years. This is probably going to be, if you're looking at doing this, you're looking for probably a minimum of 10 years and possibly for the rest of your life. And depending on how old you are, that might be another 40 years or 50 years or longer even. Now, certainly within that time frame, what we perceive as transport and travel issues are going to be obliterated.
Transformed, unrecognisable.
Transformed.
The idea of everybody having a car right now, everybody owns their own car. Car ownership and automotive ownership is going to transform with autonomous driving. You know,
exactly. It'll be a
the
situation
farmers
where
in
you
your
go on
area, they're going to share one Land Rover, and you're just going to type it in and away you go.
Yeah. If you're in sunny Bedfordshire and your family and friends are in South London, you won't be thinking about when you want to go to South London. You'll be using the Deliveroo version of your autonomous transport, and you'll dial it up. It'll arrive outside your door in 10 minutes.
Listening to this podcast,
depending on what. Yeah, and it'll take you and your family to South London, and whilst you're in there, you'll have access to your streaming services and everything that you would have at home. So it'll be like sitting in your living room on that journey. So instead of it being wasted time where you're behind the wheel having to concentrate, you'll be so your whole perception of distance will change because that time won't be wasted. It won't be tiring.
That's right.
It'll be like
there'll be new business
models.
There'll be ways of adding value there.
Yeah.
You know, so
exactly.
Yeah, all of that.
So your location at the moment, places that you might think are remote now, will no longer be remote. In the same way that when the internal combustion engine in the train, when the train came around, think of London, as the train came, the underground, and then the underground station extended. Every time they extended an underground station, a suburb built up very, very quickly. And because that suburb was, instead of being half a day from the centre of London, it was half an hour or an hour from the centre of London. And that transformed the growth of London in particular. But that experience that London had over 100 years ago, the rest of the country will have in a very short period of time. It's not really happened. The north is not connected east to west. It takes a long time to get from Manchester to Newcastle because of terrible transport. But that's going to change. Not so much because the roads are going to get better, but because the mode of transport is going to become completely revolutionized. And I think, if bearing in mind what we're talking about, buying a small holding, that will change. It might change your view of what you might consider currently remote. And remember, the more so-called remote, and remote doesn't necessarily mean the north of Scotland or Wales. It could be remote as in Bedfordshire or Lincolnshire or whatever.
Big shout out to Bedfordshire today.
Yeah, because of distance of driving from where your core connections are.
Yeah.
So, I mean, a good example is Lincolnshire, a county that I'm beginning to learn. No, it takes more than 2 hours to get from one side of Lincolnshire to the other, and that's without traffic. That's assuming there's no traffic because it's
that A14.
second, third. It's such a big county. It's the second largest county in the UK. It's huge, from Stamford up to Grimsby. It just driving at normal speed. It's 100 odd miles. It's big, but that will change when you're sitting there doing your books or catching up on your latest Netflix binge watching session or whatever,
and doing your work,
or doing your work or whatever,
doing your shopping, and doing life stuff,
or just sitting socialising. You might be in a social van with family and playing cards or whatever. It's not going to be like it is at the moment, and that will happen. So I'm waffling about that, but it's worth considering because you're not buying for today. You're buying for the next 10, 20, 30 years. So bear that in mind.
Definitely. Good point.
So that connects really nicely to my next question is, how do you then pick the land? How do you know how to evaluate a piece of land and qualify it and say, this is the right fit? This is ticking all the boxes and I'm not getting hit by any red flags or pitfalls, or what are the kind of things you need to look out for when you're choosing a bit of land?
Whew. Well, do you want to go, Scott, or shall I kick off on that?
Yeah, so I took a big deep breath in there and went, whew. And I spoke to David about this previously, and I don't think there is one way for everybody to do this. I don't think it is linear. Okay, so it is more of a holistic view here, but there are some fundamentals that you need to consider to put in place, and we've spoke about those on previous podcasts and episodes. So obviously we're looking for at least 12.5 acres, of land. Yeah. That's what we're looking for.
And for those of you
Can I just add on that? That might change if legislation changes, but for now, that's what you have to do in order to officially register to be able to build a barn on your land.
Yeah. So to get your CPH number and your SBI number and officially be a farm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's what we're looking for. There's no set ways on this because of that can actually be multiple sites. So again, it doesn't need to be 12.5 acres in one part.
Lot. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Then it's down to your appetite for adventure and your capabilities and your mindset and possibly your age and possibly your energy levels and possibly your
fitness and health.
And possibly your family skills. It really, really depends. And I'll put some context on top of that. You know, I was 30, a young whippersnapper, mid-30s when I started this journey, full of energy, full of life, ex-professional athlete, done Tough Mudder and I ran across the country and everything along those lines. I was a fit guy. I was ambitious. I was a business owner. I took on anything. But let's say someone's picking up this journey in their mid-50s, mid-60s, and they haven't got that run of 10 years to get things right, or their perception of it. Yeah. Some 55-year-olds are super fit. Some aren't. Some have got skills. Some aren't. Some might have to learn and take time. Some have already got it, And that's whether so I don't think that there's a one size that fits all here. I think you need a holistic approach, but thinking about the fundamentals is the size first, then the infrastructure. Okay, so the infrastructure, does it have water? Does it have power? Does it have sewage? Does it have existing buildings? Okay, and then the answers to those will depend on your outlook and your adventure and whether you've got the finance now to put them in. Because if you've got the finance to put them in, one foul swoop and you're in. But if you have to work towards them and build up your skill level and build up your farm business, it's going to take a little bit of time, a little bit of sacrifice, a little bit of compromise, and some tough days. But if you're prepared to do that, I'm not going to stop you. So I'm not going to say this is right and this is wrong. It's just, it depends, which is a really naff answer, but I'm trying to give everybody the opportunity to follow their dreams. But be informed about it. Be well informed about going to your dreams, and probably not be so haphazard like I was, because I went all guns blazing, and made loads of mistakes, didn't know what I was doing, how to do it, or anything along those lines, and wasted a lot of not just time, but a lot of money as well. Okay, so I would say have a decent conversation with your families and your friends and with us to sort of like give you a balanced view on what land would be ideal for you. But the more infrastructure you've got in place, the easier it will be. The less infrastructure that you've got in place, you're going to have to consider that in your negotiations and your finance raising. Okay, so think about that. Then additionally, I would also look at what access it's got, what road it's on, and the accessibility to your lifestyle as well.
How big a deal is access?
Well, so on, it shouldn't be a problem if you design it right. Okay. But if you're creating a new entrance for your farm business, you need to have visual displays that are safe enough for highways to approve your planning. Okay. Because if you're taking it from bare land to an agricultural worker's dwelling, okay, you would need different displays. Okay. Now you'll need different displays depending on the speed limit of the road that you're going out onto.
So what's a display? Is it like that curved, angular kind of road that leads to connect onto?
So what you can actually see both ways. All right. For it to be safe. So you're coming from your farmland onto a highway. Yeah. Okay. Any particular road, an A road, not an A road, it will be a B road or whatever, and everything. Whether it's a dual road, whether it's a single carriage or a double carriage, whether it's got lights, whether it's got a speed limit, and exactly that. All of that, you need different. So get a highways person to look at what you actually need is if it's safe.
Yeah.
Okay. We go out onto a 60-mile-an-hour road.
Okay.
So our visibility from both ways on the road needs to be longer for it to be safe.
Yep, makes sense.
The local community have campaigned for it to be brought down to 40.
Okay.
Which then would change what you would need. So there's no black and white situation. It just depends on what the scenario is, right? Now, we've the local community have asked for it to be 40 miles an hour because of the road leads on to farms. And there's ponies coming out, there's farm tractors coming out. There's all of those trips that are happening in our area. So to make it safe, we would like it 40 mile an hour.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
But the council haven't responded and it's 60 miles an hour. So we need to make an entrance that's safe.
Okay.
So access to a national highway is a consideration.
Because then that affects any planning applications.
Any planning applications, right? So one of my refusals, and you can take a pick, the highway said it was unsafe. Okay, but they were actually, they said it was unsafe, but they actually wrote in their refusal and the rationale for it, they was taking it as a residential development.
Okay.
And again, our local planning, different rules. Straight away, you get it, all right? But our local planning authority don't. So if it was a Barrett's home or we were building a new development, yes, that's residential development. And we would need a safer road for us to get access to a national highway. But this isn't a residential development. It's an agricultural workers dwelling. Okay, so our planning, our transport consultant, our highways consultant has the fallback position that it's an agricultural dwelling. Okay, and the council can't control that agricultural traffic. If you was just a farm without an agricultural workers dwelling, you could have 1,000 tractors go in and out of that drive 1,000 times a day and the council couldn't say a thing about it. Okay, so it's the fallback position. So again, access is a consideration.
It's a big deal.
It's a consideration. It may well be or may not be a deal breaker. But if you've got residential there already, like a farm dwelling there already, access shouldn't be an issue. And you can always create a new one with planning, with permitted development. So there's always different ways to do it.
Okay.
Don't discard it just because of the access might not be safe, because you could redesign something.
Work out. Okay. Are there any things and considerations we need to look at? Because I had an interesting conversation with an estate agent. And trust is a word I don't often use alongside the word estate agent.
Right, okay.
And I was looking at this bit of land that had woodland on it. Actually, David came to view it with me.
Oh, nice. Where was my invitation?
We haven't met yet, Scotty.
Oh, right, okay, all right. I'll let you off then.
And it was a bit of woodland, but there was some development on there. So they'd built some chicken houses, and one had a concrete pad, and they'd run water to it. I was like, okay, something might happen here. And the estate agent said to me, oh, I don't think there's any limitations on this woodland or anything like that.
The phrase, I don't think.
From an estate agent.
And David was adamant, check it out, or get them to put in writing absolutely that there are no restrictive covenants or tree preservation orders or anything like that. And lo and behold, I checked, and 70 to 80% of the property was ancient woodland.
Nice.
Which is untouchable.
Untouchable.
And going to your whole thing of a lot of planning officers are underskilled in what they're doing.
Yeah.
I called the local planning office,
Oh, yeah.
told them exactly where the location was,
Yeah.
and exactly what was on the land. And I said, this is a woodland, but there's been some areas that have been cleared, and there's a concrete pad and a chicken house on it. And they're like, you can't clear any woodland. I'm like, I'm asking how they managed to clear the woodland. You can't do that. I'm not asking if I can do it. I'm just saying it's happened and how it's taken place.
How long has it been there? Yeah.
Because obviously you know about it because it's been there for years.
Right, it had been there for a long time.
It's been there for a long time.
Interesting.
And they were notified.
Yeah.
Because I'd spoken to the vendor. We'd actually met the vendor. We had, permission to be able to do this. And the planning officer was like, no, that's not allowed. You can't do that. You can't clear any woodland. It's like, okay, it's already been done. This has already happened. How did they manage to do this? Because I'd like to see if we can potentially build a smallholding farm on the woodland. Yeah. Like, no, you can't do it. You won't get planning permission for it. I was just like, okay, we're just going in circles here.
That's
Thank
right.
you for your time. Click.
So the consideration is obviously have the right question of the right people, right? Yes. And if you phone the local planning authority, the LPA, in my experience for Bedfordshire Borough Council, the culture is no. What's the question? Okay. Yeah. And that's what it is, and I don't blame them for it. They're overworked, underpaid. They've got their own stresses in their life. They don't want the hassle. They've not got no remit to help you tick the boxes and for them to save their job. Yeah. They've got their own stresses and strains. They're not a public service, so it's probably the wrong question of the wrong person. So you get the right person. Get a good planning officer, ask the vendor how long it's been, how did you get it, and everything along those lines, and get that evidence, and you take a point of view. My planning officer, I worship because I had, you can see the other episodes, I had a very torrid time and some bad planning history, but he unpicked
planning
that.
Planning officer or consultant?
Planning consultant, sorry. Okay. So planning consultant, Matt Brown of Brown Boots Planning is absolutely awesome. Google him. He's awesome. He unpicked all of the planning history that I had and the site had previously and developed a strategy for that. So I asked the right question of the right person. If I ask the council, can I do this? No, what's the question? All right. That's just a methodology and an approach to have in life, I think. Don't ask silly questions of silly people.
So for those of you that don't know, there's this thing called restrictive covenants, which I've come across and I'm learning a bit about, and David could definitely speak more in this than me. Do
you want me to outline how they work?
How do they come about? What are they? How do you deal with them?
Right. So if you're an owner, freehold owner of a piece of land, you can, but when you're selling that piece of land, on the title to the successors, to the person you're selling it to, and their successors in title, so that means the people they sell it on to or give it to, you can place what's called a restrictive covenant. And what that is, it could be anything. You could say it could be anything you like. You could be only people wearing red bobble hats can enter the land, or whatever. You can say what you like. But generally speaking, the rule is, or what people use them for, is to either stop something happening in the future, and there's a number of reasons someone might want to do that, or it's to effectively benefit from some uplift in value that may occur in the future. So, 2 examples. Number one, to stop something happening. So let's imagine that you own a farmhouse, you're selling off some land to someone who says they want to use it for farming, and you don't want them to build a piggery next to your, in the next field next to your farmhouse, because you know that piggeries could produce smells if there's high concentrations of animals in feedlots. So you put a restrictive covenant on the title that says no piggery can ever be built on the land that is being transferred at any time in the future. Now, if someone then breaches that covenant, they are breaking effectively their agreement with you, and you've put that on a perpetual title. So they're breaking the agreement with you, and their successors are it might not be them that do it, but it might be the person they sell it to or pass it on to who breaks that agreement. Well, that person is still bound by that covenant. Yeah. So what that does is it effectively restricts that type of development. Now, the second sort of reason people use it is because they know that the land, let's say the field is on the edge of an existing settlement. So like there's a market town that's growing quite quickly, and they're selling a field, an agricultural field to you that has no planning permission, but it runs onto the backs of gardens of the furthest extent of the built-up area. So it's outside the settlement boundary of the town, but it's next door to it. Well, they might think, well, in another 10 years, planners might then say, we'll allow houses to be built in the next 200 meters around the town because the town needs to expand. Well, that way, that sudden 2 acres of land, or 12 acres, 12.5 acres, let's say, could go from being worth 125 grand to 1.25 million overnight if it gets planning permission, or probably that amount of land, and depending on where it is, could be worth 20 million. So it could go from a few 100,000 to many millions of pounds. So when they put a covenant on something like that, the buyer may think, well, okay, I'm going to develop it, and then they have to pay to get the covenant removed. So they have to approach the person who set the covenant and then pay them some money. And the rule of thumb is 30%, I believe, approximately 30% of the value of the uplift, as valued by an RICS independent surveyor. So they can go ahead and develop it anyway, get planning permission. But once they've got that, if the covenant says if planning permission is granted, then that point they would have to pay. The covenant might say if it is physically developed. So it might be that they don't have to pay for getting planning permission, but they have to pay once someone starts building on it. So someone might get planning permission and sell it with an uplift, but then the person who buys it and develops it has to then pay. So it depends on how it's written. But basically that's what it is. It's a way of banking the future profits from someone who has the skill to develop it. Or
you introduced that as a covenant. I understood the latter part of those things as an overage, because that's quite common in farmland piece, which is the overage piece, which is, as you say, if someone develops on it in the future, then there's an uplift and you get money for it.
Yeah, but the covenant is the legal term for the document that confirms the overage. The overage is the description of how much over. It's just a generic term for how much extra money will be.
So it's like a line item of the covenant.
Yeah, but no. Well, yes, you can do an overage agreement. So you can sell something with an overage agreement, a bit like an option agreement. So I can sell you something and say, I'm selling you this. If you develop it, you have to pay me £10,000 or £20,000 or X% of the uplift. So that is an overage agreement. That's just a commercial agreement between you, and it might be lodged against. But a covenant is a legally binding property contractual term. An overage isn't. An overage is just what's the word? They're two slightly different things, as I understand it. So an overage describes any kind of agreement. A covenant is something that goes on for successors in title.
Right.
So what I mean, it goes on forever. So 1,000 years. You can buy. I bought a property that had a covenant on from 500 years ago. So that's how long, or 400 and something years ago. It goes on forever.
Thanks for clearing that up, David. How many trees you planted since you've been talking about that?
Shall I count? It's completely pitch dark here, and I haven't got my head torch, but I've got this funny little torch I've tied round my chest. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 30. A little woodland of 30 trees.
Well played,
So in
mate.
a few years
Grow yourself
time,
to
what do I
freedom.
call it?
Nice.
Grow yourself to freedom. Keep growing, mate. Love that.
Yeah, we need to give it a name, this little wood that's been built. Whilst you're listening to this podcast, you've witnessed 30 trees being planted, all that carbon being captured, or carbon dioxide being converted to carbon, and all those soil microorganisms getting lovely roots to help feed them. Isn't that gorgeous?
Yeah, that is delicious. That is delicious. Could you think of any other considerations when people are looking for land, David? Because obviously we said about the size, we said about the infrastructure, we said about access. Any other things that you've got on your list?
Water.
Yeah, I covered that in infrastructure.
No, you didn't in detail.
Oh,
you covered, get a borehole, right? So water, when you're looking at land, I'll give you a personal example. So I got a piece of land, acquired a piece of land that was cheap because it was marshy and wet. Now, as you know, the climate appears, we seem to be going through a period of climate's always changing, right? It always has, it always will. However, there are periods where locally and also on a larger global scale, it can change quite quickly. And in the UK, we're getting warmer and wetter. And so flooding is a big problem. So I was looking for some land that wouldn't be prone to flooding. However, the land I had, part of it was very wet and marshy because it was the land is shaped in a sort of bowl. It's at the top of the water catchment area. And that was relatively cheap because of that. So it could only really be used for pasture. But for me, I was very excited because when I saw the land, we'd just been going through a bit of a localized drought. And this whole field was completely green. But I was told that it wasn't used much. Anyway, I started digging. After the people showing me around left, I started digging around, and lo and behold, I tapped into a spring, which I then dug out, and I was getting a trickle of water, but I realized that if there was one spring, there could be many more if I could dig further down. Anyway, long story short, since then, I've managed to tap right into the spring layer, and I'm now getting, effectively, I've created a stream. The water was flowing through the ground down into the main, the beginning of the river capture area. But what I've done is I've brought that up, and I've now got water flowing out of the ground at the rate of about 80 litres a minute. And that's pure natural spring water, crystal clear. I've even drunk it without boiling it or, just drunk it straight from spring, and I've been perfectly fine. Not suggesting other people do that. Are you sure that's
not Peckham Springs, mate?
Could be. But the point is, what was considered a problem actually was an opportunity, because I can now irrigate the whole of my land with natural spring water, and it flows throughout the year. I've had the land about a year and a half, and it hasn't, it was flowing, it was dribbling out when I first dug it, when I first saw the land, but it's been flowing permanently since I created the ponds. And the reason why that's important is if you're going to have a small holding, if we have a drought, then water is going to be crucial to you. Now, you can have a borehole, which is fantastic, as Scott has said, but then the borehole relies on electricity to pump the water up.
Yeah,
and if you have a failure, then you if it's at the wrong time, which generally it is, your boiler fails in the winter, your borehole fails in the summer.
Yeah, freezes over. All that.
You're at risk. Whereas if you have spring, which you may well be able to, you would certainly, if you've got a wet area at the bottom of a sloping land, and where the impermeable rocks meet impervious rocks, then or substrate like clay, then you will definitely be able to have a source of water which will be pure and clear and unpolluted, generally speaking, if your land hasn't got chemicals on it. So that's a really, what you might be put off by actually could be a big advantage. And in fact, right now, many people see it as a disadvantage. Oh, it's wet and marshy. Now, that's very different than marshland next to a large river, because if it's next to a large river, it's marshy because you're in the floodplain, and that's very different. And you want to avoid that floodplain. unless you specifically are interested in having land that, if the majority, if you don't mind building a floating house, living on a houseboat or whatever. But right now, I would avoid floodplains further down river valleys if you can. But wet areas, as long as wet areas very good, as long as they are not in a floodplain, because you can tap that water and then it becomes resource. Also, the ponds to stock with fish. Trout is the best source of omega-3 fatty acids and vitamin D. You get vitamin D from trout. So if you fill that with trout, you can have organic trout, and you can get you and your family can have a source of healthy vitamin D throughout the year without having to have pills, or, in the winter in Britain, we generally don't get enough vitamin D from sunlight, especially now with the cloud. Yeah. So you can stock it with trout, and then you'll be healthy throughout the year, because vitamin D is one of the key vitamins to boost your immune system, keep your immune system going. So
do you know what, David?
Very important.
Do you know what? I was a little bit blasé about water to begin with, but you've actually convinced me that that's a key consideration. Because if I was spoilt, I suppose. I was from South London, so the water come out the tap. Yeah. Then I've bought my forever home, and they already had a borehole. So I was a little bit blasé about it. I wasn't really looking at it. They had a borehole, got water.
No.
We've had to protect the water. We've had a couple of pumps in there, and it freezes over in January and stuff, and you have to go farmer's walk on the water for the animals. You've actually made me feel blessed. I feel privileged to have a borehole and that water on my land. That we've got a free source of water.
Yeah, exactly. So that's if you've got that, it's a great advantage. If there's already a borehole, a working, functioning borehole that's been tested, then that's if there is one on the site, then that's a real plus. But don't be put off if there isn't, because you can if you contact the companies that do borehole drilling, they generally have if they're a local one or one that cover your area, they will have the drill rigs from other boreholes in the area. So they'll be able to tell you whether you can
Call me. I'll find you water. Scotty. You know that whole hanger thing? Just holding hangers in your hands.
Does that actually work?
You mean divining? Yeah. Divining. Yeah, I've done it.
It works. And they charge you a few hundred quid for them to come and hold some hangers and walk around and find some water.
No way.
It works.
I did get a quote for a borehole for one of the bits of land that I was looking for.
Yeah. How much they quote?
It was 15 grand, I think.
Serious?
Yeah.
Wow.
Did they come do the hangers?
Yeah, well, a lot of
it. They didn't. They literally said, we've done one in the local area.
Yeah.
And we reckon the cost is going to be round about this one, because we know exactly how deep it's going to be and the materials that we've got to drill through to get to it.
And this is another consideration. Like, my borehole is 53 metres deep. It depends on how far you would obviously have to dig. Yeah. So yours might be going deeper.
Yep.
Or shallower. You just don't know. And obviously it was in a better area. Well, I say a better area. It's more towards London and South East.
Yeah.
So, the contractors are going to be more expensive.
They are.
But
it actually made me think about learning how to do it myself. Because I started Googling the heck out of it. And I saw these guys in America on YouTube literally like, I'm going to dig a borehole today. And it's got this big long vibe and like, what you need is a really strong motor, but you need torque, not power and speed. And just watch the guy just dig a borehole. I was like, I can do that.
And that proves my point.
Yeah.
That proves my point about this holistic view on things. You wouldn't be prepared to spend 15 grand on a borehole, but you've got the appetite to go on YouTube it and find it out and do it yourself.
Buy the kit for $1,000 and do it myself.
Exactly.
Spend 14 grand on something else.
Exactly that. So there's no right or wrong here. It's just I call it a pathway. It's just your pathway of how you're navigating your situation. Yeah. But you want to be informed on all of those pieces. Yeah. Whereas I just went, and made a load of mistakes. You just want to be informed on that. So it's a great consideration about the water. Thanks for pushing on that, David. That's appreciated.
So if any of you guys are watching this and you need a borehole on your land, just put in the comments, boreholes are us, and I'll consider buying the whole kit to buy a borehole.
We'll do boreholes for 14 grand.
Exactly.
There we go. Just on what you were saying there, David, as well about the floodplains, do check out the DEFRA website as well. Yeah. So DEFRA website has got really, really good tools, really good features to go and put in. So go and put in your land to the DEFRA website, and it will tell you whether it's a high phosphate area, whether it will be drought, whether there's historic pieces in the area and everything along those lines. All free of charge, all accessible. It's a little bit hard to understand.
Is it the same as Magic Maps?
It's kind of like Magic Maps. In DEFRA speak, so it's not really intuitive. You may need a PhD in what button to actually push. But go and test it out, and there's so much information on there. And when I got a lady from DEFRA to show me through it, I was like, amazing. Made sense. I didn't know what this was. But she talked me through it, and away you go from there. Right. So that's also an option as well. Cool. Ask the right questions to the right people.
Brilliant. All right, fantastic. So we found out how to locate land, what to look for when you're evaluating your bits of land, and all the other little bits that you're not necessarily taught on, like overages and restrictive covenants and stuff like that. And these are things that are worth you actually researching yourself and check things out. And do look on, I don't know what that...
UK Land and Farms.
The one to the DEFRA thingamajig.
DEFRA website.
Yeah.
Just go to the DEFRA website, and I can't. We'll put in a link or something.
Put it in the description.
In there, around there.
And also check out Magic Maps. I use that to help me find out the designations of land.
Great.
And to look at the topology as well to see what the grades of land were. Because I've looked at some really hilly things, and like developing on really hilly land can create new challenges.
Yeah.
But not to say to put you off, it's just new challenges.
Yeah.
I think that.
So the question was how to find land. I think we've given some tools and approaches and principles to go and look for it.
Yeah.
But the key thing is get into conversations. Get into conversation with land agents. Get into conversations with estate agents. Get into conversations with the farmers. Because if they all know people that are obviously, and there'll be more opportunity.
Yeah.
And just go and have fun. Go shopping. Yeah. Go and kiss frogs and explore the opportunities because it's so much fun. Yeah. And I wish I was doing it again because it's so much fun.
I mean, you can find a bit of land for me.
Well, you will be soon.
I need a bit of rest after getting my plan. I need some rest after getting my plan in, but then I'll go again. I'll go again.
Yeah.
I'll go again.
But thank you so much for joining us on this episode. This has been the Smallholding Revolution, where we help people just like you grow your own freedom by finding a bit of land, building your farm and homestead, smallholding lifestyle, and building your own home on that land. We shall see you on the next episode. What do you think we should talk about? How to finance the land?
Ooh, money.
Yeah?
Yeah, let's do money.
Yeah.
Different ways of buying the land, getting ownership, or at least control of
there
the
we
land.
go.
Control,
nice.
Deeper into that on the next episode. Thanks so much again for joining us. Like, share, subscribe, and our website is now live. So go check us out. Register for absolutely free and join the conversation on there. We'll see you soon. Viva la revolution.
Viva la revolution.
Viva la revolution.